To say that 2021 was a crazy year would be a vast understatement. I started this channel late in 2020 and didn't really expect any more than 100 subs or so, but to my surprise, over 450 people this past year have decided to hit the button showing me some support, and for that I thank you very much. So what better way to get into 2022 than to talk about what some would consider to be a pretty controversial topic. Today I want to talk about Godfall, and why I actually enjoyed this game, even though there are plenty of reasons as to why I can understand why other people did not. Godfall was a game that some would argue was dead on arrival, and in many cases rightfully so. Even at the time of making this video, I can't say that I recommend this game for anything more than $15. Luckily, both Sony and Epic Games are offering Godfall for free on their respective platforms right now, and I can say with confidence that you should download this and give it a try for yourself, because I am willing to bet that there are others out there who, like me, will enjoy some of the things that the game has to offer. So for this video, I want to make it very clear that I did not play Godfall at launch. I saw the reviews and the measly scores it was receiving across the board and decided that it wasn't for me at the time. Not only this, but the looter shooter brand is one that has gained a reputation for being pretty stagnant, especially at launch, and being that I was already pretty invested in Destiny, I didn't see the point of putting any time into something that everyone said was trash. Back to the present, I downloaded Godfall for free about a week and a half back and have since put a substantial amount of time into the game, escalating myself through both the story and deep into the endgame. I also want to add that I spent the $15 on the story pack, which included the Fire and Darkness expansion along with the rest of Godfall's premier content, and after playing through everything, I feel that I can confidently say that overall, despite some obvious issues, I have enjoyed playing Godfall these past weeks and am very hopeful that the makers of this game continue to progress and add more to it, because I believe that there is a lot of potential here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet, and I'm just going to give you guys a few bad and good things about Godfall, then you can go out there and decide for yourself what you think of the game. Okay, so let's talk about the bad. Why it sucks part 1. The story is atrocious, and I can see how anyone who spent $60 on this on release day were pissed. The Fire and Darkness expansion added a new realm and added some more characters and NPCs outside of the main hub, which made the game a bit livelier, but the story was still very quick and pretty lame. Why it sucks part 2. Godfall has way too many menus. This game is very stat heavy, and as a new player I found this to be very overwhelming to the point where I probably would have deleted the game had I not been playing anything else. This needs to be minimized and made a bit more accessible, especially for new players coming into it. Why it sucks part 3. The UI in this game also needs some work. I hate going to the in-game vendor and looking at a potential weapon or item to buy, only to have to exit completely out of his menu, open my menu, memorize the stats of a piece of gear, then go back to the vendor to see if what he has is better, only to forget what I just memorized. You get the idea. There needs to be things implemented such as a compare gear button or something similar, and this is just one small example that also amplifies what's wrong with the menus in general. And lastly, why it sucks part 4. The worlds are very empty, and traversing them is pretty fun until it isn't. The worlds being empty are pretty self-explanatory, but the traversal has made me so irritated, especially in the endgame, for 2 reasons. 1. The reticle. The reticle is almost non-existent in this game, and you literally have to have sniper accuracy to get this thing to point at these grapple beacons, which sucks when you're trying to speed through anything. 2. The running. Godfall has this weird thing where you have a soft run by clicking L3 like most games, but then after about 3 seconds or so you bust out into this full sprint, which is clearly more ideal, until you literally touch anything or alter your direction in any way whatsoever, in which the game will actually sprint cancel for you, forcing you to have to build up all your momentum again, which feels really unnecessary and is something I feel you should be able to toggle like in settings. Okay. So those were a few of the bigger gripes that I had when it came to Godfall, but now I want to take some time and talk about the good things. Why it's good, part 1. Godfall is gorgeous, and the armor, weapon, and enemy design is amazing. Godfall may be disliked for an abundance of reasons, but everything about this game to me is visually appealing. I did hear a lot of complaints from people who said that the particle effects from this game were too much and were very overwhelming. Maybe I'm just blind or ignorant, but this has not been an issue for me at all outside of the opening mission, But like I said, I didn't play this game at launch, so maybe they reeled in some of the visuals with an update, but to me, everything is just beautiful. Why it's good, part 2. The loot and drop rates are the highest I've ever experienced in the genre. If you're familiar with games like Destiny, you know that sometimes it can take upwards of 30 minutes or even more to receive any form of meaningful loot. In Godfall, it's raining loot constantly and in so much abundance that even the smallest and fastest of activities can feel almost unnecessarily rewarding. I mean, just look at this. The game also has a random rolls type system implemented here to where you can get multiples of the same item, and they all have aspects about them which can be used to optimize different armor sets or valor plates as the game refers to them, which in turn makes the endgame grind feel worth your time. Which brings me to my next and most prominent point, why Godfall is good, part 3. The build crafting and build diversity. When this game was going through the review process, I remember hearing a lot that there is no point in switching your valor plate in Godfall because the stat differences are so small and so insignificant that they are basically glorified cosmetics. And technically, the people who said this aren't completely wrong, but let's use this logic on something like Destiny, for example. Why choose a Warlock over a Titan? Both of them can shoot all the same weapons and both of them can deal damage to a boss with a super, but if you pair Curus of a Falling Star with a Thunder Crash Titan, you can basically just one-shot a boss by yourself. The point that I'm trying to make here is that Godfall, like other looters at face value, can be played casually, and sure, technically you can probably accomplish the majority of things without switching your armor. But for those people who are interested in the endgame and crafting builds or powering through bosses as fast as possible, you're going to have a very fun time because the difference between the valor plates can actually be very large if you truly take the time to spec out any kind of a proper build. For example, I like this Mobius build because she has a super that calls up 3 Void Sentinels that shoot lasers at enemies, and I can also pull out this spear that came with a random perk that drops the same Void Sentinels when I use a certain attack. So now I can have up to 5 lasers saucing enemies around me while I'm also dealing tons of damage with regular attacks. Or here, I can use the Hinterclaw Valor Plate, and this dude comes with the intrinsic perk of having a higher chance to critically hit enemies. Now if I spec this with a bunch of critical hit and critical damage weapons and gear, I can take out this level 50 boss like it's a joke. Now things like this may not appeal to some people, which is completely fine, but for me, I really enjoyed putting together these builds and just seeing how quickly I could take down enemies. I found it a lot of fun, and I think that other people out there will also. And lastly, why Godfall is good, part 4, the combat. I am one of the few people who actually enjoys the combat in Godfall. This is probably where most of the disagreement will come from, but Godfall's combat to me is so much fun, and every blow you deliver with any weapon feels so powerful. The actual controls themselves are pretty much copied and pasted from God of War, which must have me looking through some rose-tinted glasses or something. Who knows? And yes, while I do admit alongside everybody else that the blocking and parrying could definitely use some attention, pulling out a giant sword and teleporting to an enemy across the map to deliver a killing blow is something that's just awesome. So, I have presented you with a few reasons as to why I believe Godfall got some of the bad rap that it deserved, but also a few reasons as to why Godfall is worth playing. For me personally, while I understand the gripes and complaints that turn people away from Godfall, I do urge you to download the game for free and give it a try for yourself. I truly feel that despite the negatives that there is a lot of potential here, and I've honestly had a lot of fun putting together builds and seeing how it stacks up against some of the endgame. And finally, I just want to say that if there's one thing that Godfall has reminded me of, it's that the gaming community is a very polarizing one, and you should never shy away from anything in real life or gaming just because someone with a following says that it sucks. Everyone has a different opinion, and roast this video all you want, I'm going to stand by my opinion here and say that overall, I enjoyed Godfall, and who knows, maybe you will too if you give it a shot.